Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. So would you please, if you are able, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will open this meeting's agenda as we usually do with public comment. The school committee welcomes comments from the public. Comments addressing topics under the scope and authority of the school committee are welcome at either public comment section. Please remember this is public comment, not discussion, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Each public comment section has a maximum of 10 minutes. Comments about individual students are prohibited by state and federal law. Is there anyone with a public comment this evening? Come right ahead.
All right. First, I wanted to say a really big thank you to everybody that's here.
First, we need your name and address.
Oh, yes, Sybil Kaufman, 27 Oak Ave, the Blue House.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Very heartfelt thank you to everybody, except for Kate, because God knows the hours and effort that you put in over the last few months go above and beyond your job description, and that deserves an even bigger thank you. So thank you very much. Yeah. Agreed. Second, I wanted to do a bit of a debrief. I'm sure everyone here, including me, we can breathe a big sigh of relief in a lot of ways, and could also compose an extensive list of what this body collectively and we as individuals might do differently if we could jump back in time. As someone who has herself put in some overtime getting to know the details of public school and town government's operations in Lunenburg, Massachusetts, I would like to go back at least 1 decade so I could get a PhD in ed admin, something I did consider at one point in my life but didn't get, so that would have been really helpful. As it is, I'm left with a few takeaways that I hope prove useful to you as a governing body. Moving forward, I hope you ask for what we need, not what you think we can get. Political strategy is about nuance and communications, but that comes after a fair assessment of what our children need to stay safe, healthy, happy, and engaged in a competitive curriculum, that prepares them to thrive in adulthood. Ask for what we need, and demand it if you have to. Next, look beyond what is to what should be. Does this meeting structure serve your population optimally? Can committee members work out their policy positions ahead of a public meeting? Is there a better way to summarize and communicate the policy discussions and decisions that take place here? Can you provide childcare and hold the meeting on a weekend once per quarter? I don't know. I'd be willing to help with that. I'm not throwing that out there as I'm not going to be involved. Can you help us set up a rotating refreshments donation? Also very interested in that personally. Can you be creative, innovative, or simply copy another town who has a higher community engagement rate with their school committee to achieve better turnout at meetings and more participation in surveys and votes? Can bylaws be revised to allow for community discussion rather than the structure of us being welcome to attend but not actually interact with you beyond these sometimes insufferable speeches? With the caveat that I know these are volunteer positions, the lowest hanging fruit for improvement seems to be a concerted effort between us all to improve the productivity of and community engagement at these meetings. We could do our homework beforehand, research, read, survey, synthesize, and come prepared with position statements and questions. We can try our best to avoid talking at each other and instead talk with each other. And truly, if nothing else, please, from here on out, let's not ask for what we think we can get. Let's ask for what our children need. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sybil. Any other public comments this evening? Mr. Schoenbrini?
So I want to thank Sybil Kaufman, Mandy Gilman, TJ Laughlin, Shoshana Mule, Kara Harun-Kewitz, Noah Lind, Tata Furman, Kaylin St. George, Joseph James, Brandon Harris, Cecilia Stanwyck, Sophia Mule, Owen Foyle, and my son. I was very proud when he made a comment at town meeting in support of the override. I think that the fact that the override passed means that this is a community that values education, it values our students, it values our teachers, and it values the role a school plays in that community. And I think that the passage of the override and the efforts by the parents and the students to organize in support of the override is really a message to the school committee that we need to work just as hard as everybody else, and we need to have innovative ideas that make what we do more accessible to people. And I think that one thing that's happened, especially since the open meeting law has passed, is that meetings in public have become cumbersome. And my hope is in line with what Sybil said. And I didn't prepare, we didn't collaborate in our preparation.
Great minds.
We can do better. And I think that Peter and Carol's presentation at town meeting was an example of how you can hit all the notes in less than 10 minutes. And so I think that, if the override can pass, we have a lot of work to do, and I want to make sure that we do that work correctly. The last thing is, I just wanted to say to Dr. Burnham, you can thank your team, but at the end of the day, we would not have been able to ask if you had not had a vision for what a curriculum change could do in terms of test scores. And we would not have had the support if the schools weren't running the way they were. And we would not have had the buy-in from parents if they didn't see meaningful improvements and assessments and test scores across the board. And while your team is important, you should get the credit.
I cannot, Nicole. I cannot. Lots and lots of hours by many people got to the budget that we have, so, thank you.
Which budget?
The budget that we have now. But honestly, I could not have cranked out as many budgets as I did without a team to work with me on it. I probably would have maybe only been able to get you 3. So, thank you very much. I extend that to my entire leadership team because they are critical in the process, so thank you.
Mrs. Brzezowski?
I wanted to start off tonight also by saying thank you. Thank you to every single person in this town who voted yes or no. 1,411 people participated in the democratic process. Thank you to every person who participated. Thank you to every citizen who paid attention, who asked tough and insightful questions, and who cared enough to get involved. Thank you to the Lunenburg SOS group who advocated so fiercely for the students and got out the vote so successfully. Thank you to the students who made their voices heard. Thank you to the teachers and the staff who have had to bear through this process and the uncertainty. Thank you to the superintendent and her team, and Annika and Juliana, who put in an incredible amount of work and hours and their knowledge into these budgets. I really do want the public to understand how hard Dr. Burnham and her team worked. There were times that a budget document would be uploaded to our drive at midnight, and then at 6 a.m. I would open it up, and Dr. Burnham was already working on it again. Thank you again to Dr. Burnham for her patience and her diligence, and for not flinching when I sent her an email with 90-something questions about the individual line items in the budget. I'm so sorry for that. And she answered every single question with a lot of detail. Thank you to the other elected and appointed officials in town for working with us during such an unprecedented budget season. Thank you to our town manager, Heather Lemieux, who worked hard to fill the budget gaps and work through a difficult scenario. The Finance Committee put in an incredible amount of work, and some of its members were strong advocates for the schools. Thank you to the Select Board for working with us during this season, and some of their members' advocacy of the school system and for their votes of support for the schools. I do want to make it clear, while this is a victory, this does not mean we're swimming in money. We purposefully kept the override to a modest achievable amount. The exact amount was to level fund the schools from the previous year minus the ESSER funding. We had always known the ESSER money was ending. I personally did not feel it appropriate to transfer the burden of that money from the federal government grants onto the backs of Lunenburg taxpayers. So there will be some positions cut this year. Those positions have been planned for strategically long-term. We had always known that ESSER money was finite. But the override success means that we get to give students level services from this year to next year without having to drastically cut programs or staff. It doesn't mean we have money to expand programs or staff or that we have a sudden influx of more money. It means exactly what we've been saying, level service funding. The exact amount of money needed to do the same thing this year that we've been doing last year. Lunenburg is still at the far low end of the spectrum for per student spending in the state. One very modest override victory does not make up for years of low school funding. As we have been very transparent about during this process, every dollar of this override budget has been allocated and budgeted carefully next year. Dr. Burnham spent a lot of time preparing multiple budgets for multiple scenarios, and this is part of the reason why, so we would be prepared. So I'm asking the board going forward if we can be very cognizant of the budgetary constraints and work within the resources allocated. And if we can just maintain this careful budgeting going forward and this very careful attention to the budget that we've had over this budget season and just keep doing that even with the passage of the override. Our focus is on the students. The school committee has a unique charge as elected officials. We're here to advocate for the students, for their needs and what's best for them, and to build in the best school system we can with the resources available. Every budget decision is made with the goal of student success in mind. What is best for the students? And I am so happy, so proud of my town, that on Saturday, enough Lunenburg voters asked themselves that exact same question and made that question their priority. What is best for the students? So, again, thank you, Lunenburg.
Any other public comments this evening?
Yes, I would like to congratulate the PTO on a great cruise night tonight. I was there earlier. It was a great crowd and a great event. Also want to thank all the Lunenburg voters who came out and voted, and also want to thank everyone for their support throughout the process, the school committee members, the superintendent, her admin team, also the staff, and the parents and the students who really got involved in the process to make it happen. We couldn't do it without a great community effort. So thank you all.
Anyone else? Okay, not seeing it, and there's nobody online. Not seeing anyone else, then we'll continue on to the chair's report, which is basically more of the same. I wish to thank everybody involved in the passing of the override, whether you were part of SOS Lunenburg, or whether FinCom, or whether you went to town meeting and or voted on Saturday. We are grateful to you. Every little bit of anything was helpful. The stories that I heard from neighbors saying their college-age students came home to make sure to vote because they knew the money was so badly needed was quite heartwarming. And also the amount of our high school students that are 18 and were able to vote and did so. So it's a great lesson in civics. And it was a wonderful statement by the community. We believe the job is done. We have an attorney just double checking to make sure there's nothing else we have to do. But we think we are all set. And the children of Lunenburg will benefit greatly from everyone's generosity, and we thank you very much for that. On another note, funding once again, that seems to be the theme of the year. The legislators are working in their conference committee to finalize this year's budget. There is a bill that would be of great help to us. It is sponsored by MASC, MASS, MTA, an AFT, a whole lot of letters. But basically, the Massachusetts school superintendents, school committees, and the two major teachers' unions. And the one that would help Lunenburg the most, there are many bills out there, and I want to thank Senator Cronin. I've had a long conversation with him in the last couple of weeks for telling me that he is on top of this. Because as it goes through the Senate, which is where it's finding its way at the moment, he is on top of it. But I wanted to let you know that the bill that will affect us most is the one that is an inflation adjustment to Chapter 70. That I have been told by our MASC representative, Tracy Novick. She tells me that it will bring Lunenburg around $500,000 if it passes. We very much want that to pass. Now, that was the way the bill was submitted. Who knows what it will turn into as it makes its way through. But as submitted, it would be quite successful. We are not a hold harmless community. We thought we were. We are not. Communities that are held harmless were getting like a 0.25% increase in Chapter 70 funding. Our funding last year, which I thought was hold harmless because it was incredibly small, was like 1.3 or something. That is not held harmless. That's woohoo, you got a lot of money. Who knew? So we are not held harmless. It came about the year that our low income numbers rose up, and those low income numbers and rising up bumped us to a different category. Nothing that's giving us money like they get like in Holyoke or Worcester or something, but a little bit more than the hold harmless amounts is what we are getting. So anyways, if you wish to help, then it is the bill to address the inflation adjustment in Chapter 70. Also, there is a bill for 100% reimbursement in special ed costs, the circuit breaker to 100% is part of one bill, as well as special education transportation. Those are also bills that you may want to ask your legislator, or Senator Cronin in this case, though he is on it, he told me he was on it, to work towards. Those bills would be tremendously helpful to us.
100%.
That's what the bill says. It's when it gets through, you don't know what's
100%,
going to happen.
100% over the.
100 right now. All right, you can help me. The circuit breaker is like at what, 65%, 75%, something like that.
I don't know the bill that you're speaking of. I haven't looked at that, but I can tell you that in the past, 100% funding of circuit breaker is actually 75% funded. Meaning we pay the 4 times the foundation first, and then they reimburse at 75% after that 4 times the foundation. That's what Jay Sullivan always considered 100% funding, was when we reached that 75%.
So 100% funding would be when we're getting the 75% back.
I think he
That's what it
means
was
100%
back in the day.
funding.
I don't know if they're looking at.
I think they're looking to
100%.
make a change.
If they're looking to make the change, then.
I saw and I couldn't figure out
So-
if they meant 100% 75 or if they meant 100% 100%, because that's
My-
a pretty big.
My understanding from Senator Cronin was 100%.
What are the bill numbers, do we know?
I do not know that, sorry.
So it seems like the millionaire's tax is collecting more revenue. I think it was over 800 million more than they expected. So now they're looking for ways to spend on education and transportation. So some of these bills could definitely help us out a lot.
So I just wanted to address that. I think that's what I have this evening. So we will move on to review and approve minutes, of which we don't have any, right? No. So we won't do that. Well, then we'll keep going. Warrants have been signed from the 30th of April to the 15th of May in the amount of $226,250.36. And if there are questions on that, those warrant numbers, please get back to Dr. Burnham's office and they will help you with that. And I will go on to the superintendent's report.
Alrighty.
So just an update on transportation forms. We are still looking to secure forms from 34 families at the high school and 28 families at the middle school. We have 100% compliance in return to Turkey Hill and the primary. As a reminder, the registration for the Early Learning Center opened this Monday. I also wanted to comment that I am aware that there has been some conversation in the public regarding student activity fees. So I've asked Mr. Santry to work with me to prepare an informational slide deck that we'll bring forward at one of the June meetings.
Great.
Just so that folks understand how that all works. I also would like to offer my gratitude to all of the people who worked so hard, paid attention, participated. So proud of our students for the work that they did around the budget in so many ways. But I also want to thank the committee because it required an awful lot of you, and you were all very strong vocal advocates for what our school district needs for funding. And I think that that's a very powerful message. I've been saying it for a number of years, solo as the superintendent, but when you mobilize families around the need, coupled with the voices of every member of the school committee around that need, it makes a difference. So thank you. Few reminders. Monday is the Memorial Day holiday. Our schools will be having their annual Memorial Day celebrations at the end of the week. And reminder that June 1st is the high school graduation. This evening, all of the members of the school committee, you've received your invitations to the ceremony. We are also forwarding those invitations up to the members of the select board. And June 5th is our next school committee meeting, which will be hybrid via Zoom from Town Hall at 6:30. We have scheduled a special school committee meeting, which will also be hybrid from this location at the middle high school. That meeting will also be at 6:30.
On the 12th of June.
On the 12th of June. And we have a regularly scheduled meeting on the 26th of June, also from this location at 6:30. And the last day of school is on June 12th. That is an early release day for students. So we're in the home stretch, winding down. But again, thank you all very much for the support, for the work that so many members of this entire district do on behalf of the children, whether it's cleaning the facility, maintaining the facility, serving lunches, answering phone calls in the office for parents, and the work, of course, that the teachers do day in and day out in the classroom. That is what is most important. So thank you all very, very much for the support. Appreciate it. And that's all I have for you this evening.
All right. Do we have a student representative on Zoom?
We do not.
All right, very busy time of year for us
Yes, it
students.
is.
Understand that. Under old business, under action, we have the rainwater retention project. So, Mr. Bernard, I think you're up.
All right, is this on?
The green
Green
light's
light.
on.
I don't see a green light. I probably shut it off.
Then you might need,
Oh, there it is, got a hold of it.
okay.
All right, so last time I was here, I gave the presentation and there was a bunch of questions and I answered the questions via email with the kind of a Q&A format. So the only thing I want to offer tonight, other than answering more questions, is just to reiterate that the demonstration stormwater BMP is for education. In my humble opinion, I think the best place to put it is where education occurs in this town, right here at the high school. The students are future homeowners here in Lunenburg, and I'm sure they deserve clean water for swimming, recreation, fishing, drinking. So I request that you approve the installation of the stormwater BMP here at the school.
All right, go ahead.
Does the plan still call for installing plants that are poisonous to humans?
The plants can be changed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very easy. There's a large list of plants, so.
I would not approve one in which we are installing poisonous plants near a group of children.
I concur.
Okay.
Mrs. Brzezowski.
Did we outsource the design of this retention?
We did, yep. We have our stormwater consultant for the town. It's CEI, Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated.
How much did we spend on these plans? These are pretty extensive design.
Off the top of my head, sorry, I don't know. But it's probably between $5,000 and $10,000.
Before-
Engineering is not
Okay,
cheap.
okay.
Mhm.
Did you talk to anyone in the school district about the location of it before spending between $5,000 and $10,000 on engineering plans?
Not specifically. I did send an email to the superintendent. I should have looked it up a while back. But, yeah, we didn't really get into a discussion on it.
Is the design mobile, or is it only specifically for that location?
It's very specific for that location.
Okay, so you spent between $5,000 and $10,000 on engineering for a project without running the location by anyone in the school district.
Yeah, I just thought it would go through. My bad, I'm sorry.
Okay, we just went through a budget cycle, that's a lot of money.
Dr. Burnham, in our packets, there are comments from Mr. Santry.
Yes.
Would you like to review those? So we've seen them, but so Mr. Bernard hears those comments and the public does as well.
So following our last meeting with the conversation, some members of the committee indicated that they would like to hear Mr. Santry's thoughts on it. So I did ask him, and I do have a summary of some of the points that he wanted to make you all aware of, because he is right now down in Washington DC with the
With
eighth
children,
graders on their
yeah.
annual trip to DC.
Oh, bless him.
So what he wanted you to be aware of is that the proposed location is an area that teachers and students utilize on a regular basis for an outdoor activity area. They also use it as an outdoor classroom space, even for advisory period at the high school level. It is a convening location in our emergency evacuation plans. It is also a convening location for fire drills. He makes the point that although it looks like an unused open space, that it's actually utilized regularly for academic activities as well as the emergency gathering location. He conveys that a rainwater garden there would decrease the outdoor space utilized by teachers and students both at the middle and the high school. And it would require us to revise emergency evacuation plans and plans for fire drills. And respectfully, he was inquiring as to whether or not there were alternate sites considered for the project. And just for the benefit of the public, we do have a water retention containing area that's located on the back corner of the middle high school was built when the school went in. And we do have a poster displayed in the cafeteria so that the students can see it and understand what's there. So those were the thoughts he wanted me to convey.
Any other questions from the committee? I would ask now, in reading your answers and questions that you sent to us, the deadline of June 30th is not quite as firm as what you had indicated. So it makes me think that perhaps there could be a different location for this. That perhaps you would have time to find a different location before the funding is a big issue, according to what you had written there. It is troublesome to me that it is an area that is utilized in this building, and all of a sudden we're being asked to do this. And the other problem is that we don't really have a problem there, it's just demonstration. So knowing there are problems in town, one would think that perhaps a demonstration where the rainwater actually needs to be dealt with would be a better thought. That's just my own thought. I would ask for any other thoughts. Mr. Leighton?
Well, I would support our facility director's idea of Brooks House. I think that was a great location too, central to the town. I think there can be other areas of the town that aren't utilized but are also in a central location. I also would hope that the town would also support maybe a demolition of the Brooks House, and then there would be a perfect location for a large area that could be utilized.
Not a bad idea there, Mr. Leighton. Any other thoughts?
I am concerned that we spent town money, potentially up to $10,000 on engineering for this location, but we're using it for safety and for education currently, so I don't think it's an appropriate location because the schools are utilizing it. I do want to say I'm very appreciative. The DPW has been fantastic about the communication lately, as far as the pavement and the pavement management and talking to Dr. Burnham and rearranging when we've been doing construction on roads around the school bus routes. I've been really impressed with that. Just in the future, things like this was a huge miscommunication that $5,000 to $10,000 was spent engineering a project in a place it can't go. That's very concerning to me. But generally, communication has been improved as far as the bus routes and everything, but this does really concern me that so much money was wasted on this.
All right, then, do I have a motion to approve or not approve the rainwater retention project?
Motion to disapprove the rainwater retention project in front of the Lunenburg Middle High School.
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
No.
Just to be clear, the motion is to disapprove. All those in favor of not putting the rainwater retention project at the middle high school in the prescribed spot, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So,
I'll go
There we
back to
go.
the drawing board.
all right, thank you, thank you,
Okay.
I appreciate it. Next, we have school choice.
So at the last meeting, I also brought forward for discussion a variety of revenue sources, school choice being one of them. And I gave you updated numbers on class sizes and enrollment, and a recommendation on a maximum number that you may wish to consider or not consider. I don't have a strong recommendation in either direction. it's just, given the budget cycle that we just went through, I thought it best not to leave any stone unturned, and bring it forward for your consideration. But we do need to vote tonight if we're going to add any
Right.
additional seats at any grade level, in addition to the ones you've already voted and approved, because we have to submit the details of our participation to the state by June 1st.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Laura?
How many more kindergarten, I know that's not on the, how many more kindergarten registrations generally? Like, are we on track for normal?
We seem to be in a spot that's fairly consistent with what we've seen in the last couple of years. I do know that Mr. Adams, with their secretary down at the primary, Mrs. Carboni, they did look at birth rates here in town. Not to say that there haven't been people who have moved in, and those children are kindergarten age, but were not born here as residents of Lunenburg. And they are not seeing any,
No bubbles.
no bubbles.
Okay.
They're not seeing, it doesn't mean that we might not
Right.
get caught with some late summer registrations. We do typically see about 10 summertime registrations for 6th grade. So that's, another thing to be aware of. We do,
Oh, no.
yep, we do.
Okay.
But we sort of factor that in, when we were looking at budget and class sizes and whatnot. Mr. Santry, that's a fairly typical annual,
We've prepared for the bubble.
yeah.
Okay. So for first grade, I know that some people, kindergarten's not mandatory.
Correct.
So how many more, generally, how many more students get added? How many people enroll that were not in kindergarten and then enroll in first grade?
There
In
are
this-
a few. We don't typically see a big bubble.
Okay.
But there are some that do enroll. Again, I brought this forward because I can tell you that we do get calls to my office every single year.
About,
Families looking to choice their children to Lunenburg schools.
what grade?
And the grades are typically the lower grades.
Is it typically kindergarten, or is it, because this proposal doesn't have us adding any kindergartens because that's pretty uncertain. But
Correct.
it
I
does
wouldn't-
have us adding.
That's a grade unless our numbers really dropped.
Yep.
I wouldn't be looking to add any to kindergarten.
And then we would have to educate them for 13 years.
Mrs. Peterson is on the meeting. I don't know if she's listening to me right now or if she's stepped away from her computer, but she may be able to offer you some insight as to our typical trends.
Yes, Dr. Brennan, I'm here.
So the question really is around the calls and what grade levels are folks typically inquiring about?
Right. Typically, we get the most inquiries from grades 5 and below. So it would be kindergarten through grade 5. Also grade 9 is a big one because that's typically a grade level where kids decide to move around and go to other places, so grade 9 is another popular one. But I do receive a lot of phone calls about kindergarten, first grade, sometimes THES, levels 3 to 5.
Which makes sense. People want their children to start in
Right.
school here and attend Lunenburg schools, so they typically want them to start when school starts for them.
So I'm a little nervous about the first grade one, but I'm not my son is in kindergarten now, and so I
I think I should not comment on that because I think it's inappropriate for me to, I have a vested interest in his class size being small, so I think it's not appropriate for me to argue against it. So I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that one. Just because he's gonna be in first grade. I have kids in the other grades too, but, we all have kids, but, I don't know, it's a hard, and you're not feeling what, you don't have a strong feeling one way or the other though?
So, the thinking historically for me, and I think even predating me, although Mrs. Peterson can weigh in on that, we've been pretty dedicated to keeping class sizes under 25 as a priority. Although it's not ever been, in my time here, expressly stated as we're looking to keep class size under 25, no more than 25. Particularly during the COVID years, we're looking to bring more bodies into the building to keep them 6 feet apart. So that would not have been a good time to make a shift. And we've been in post-COVID years where we have been actively seeking to close academic learning gaps and address student mental health needs. So again, adding to class size is a bit counter to that priority. However, it is a source that brings revenue into the district. And like I said, given the budget cycle that we just went through, I didn't want to leave any options off the table for the school committee to consider. I think we tried to make recommendations on numbers but leave a buffer for move-ins. So Mr. Adams has conveyed that typically over the summer we might get up to 10 registrations for first grade, kiddos that we hadn't had in kindergarten. Again, there's no right or wrong
No,
answer
no.
here.
Carol, should I just abstain from the conversation? Because I would suggest a modification, but I also feel it's appropriate that I just,
Then don't say anything if you prefer not to, that's fine.
I'm just gonna.
Mr. Leighton, good
Yeah,
thoughts.
I also have 3 children at the lower levels. And I think as a school committee, we're always speaking for the students in general anyway, so I'm not too concerned about it. I think it's important to have small class sizes, I think especially at the lower levels. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like IEPs and 504s, they're increasing, not decreasing in the trends. So I think the students need more supports, and I think increasing the class sizes is only gonna put more pressure on that. So that's my concern. I think, yes, I understand that there's money involved and we can increase our funding for the schools, but I think there's other avenues to increase the funding. So I think we should be looking at grants and other things that aren't gonna be affecting the gap in learning. I feel like the exchange for the funding and the increase in the gap of learning is not gonna help. So I would not support this.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
So here's the thing that I am struggling with, especially based on our conversation last time. As a non-teacher, looking at 3 teachers, I do not know what the additional workload is like to go from 23 to 24, or 24 to 25. And I would imagine, based on conversations Carol and I have had, that in first grade, 23 to 24 is a lot more than in 12th grade. So whatever the teachers say in terms of the workload increase, that would guide my decision. But I just don't know enough about, as long as we're not going over 25, I'd be okay if everybody was, if all three of you were like, it's not that big a deal. But if you're like, oh God, this is too much.
Go ahead.
So my concern is if we round them all up to 24 or 23, Lunenburg's growing.
Yeah.
It's not decreasing population
Yeah.
size. So it's not really going from 24 to 25, it's actually going 24 to 26, because
Oh,
the
that's a
next
good point.
year, we're gonna have kids moving in.
That's a good
And that's my fear too, is like, you're gonna have those kids, and you're gonna have the growing population too. So that's one of my concerns. Carol?
Well, I will say that I've taught kindergarten through third grade. I would never in a million years want 25 second graders in front of me. Never in a million years. That's too many. I know the world is a little different now, and I've looked around a bit. I do some subbing. When I do sub, I never have 25 kids there. My grandkids go to school in Worcester, and everybody would think, oh, the big city school. They don't have a class size above 22 in their school.
Okay.
I am not in favor of increasing class size for these young guys. Not at all. Just my own thought, and I wouldn't think isolated 5 spots in 7th grade is a good idea. That's like, I just wouldn't do that. I would leave, my own opinion is to leave what we had done alone. Now, if we were talking about a 2.97 budget, my opinion might be a little different as far as, not the real little guys, it wouldn't be, but it might be a little different. But we're not looking at a 2.97 budget. And I know one year I taught a kindergarten classroom with 24 kids.
What?
Holy crow. That was like, I had a parent come in and say, this is chaos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is 24 5-year-olds. So it eventually was not chaos, but the first week it was definitely chaos. In my school teacher hat, I would say I don't like it. As my grandma hat, I wouldn't like it. With my parent hat pulling out, I'm not crazy about it either, so that's my opinion.
One more thing to add too, I feel like when you're increasing the sizes, increasing more IEPs and 504s, you're gonna be basically using that money to hire more TAs, just for the extra supports, and you're not really bringing in more money to get more supplies or get new instructors. It's not gonna help.
So, I think we're ready to vote. Do I have
I'll make a
this is
motion.
action. Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion on whether or not we alter the number of school choice slots.
Okay, but what is your motion?
Oh.
Yes or no?
I would say, motion to not increase school choice slots.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all very
And-
much.
I'm gonna abstain
You're gonna
because my
abstain, you're not
feelings
coming.
on this are solely centered around my child, so
Okay.
that's appropriate.
All right, so we're gonna leave well enough alone.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Thank you for the proposal, though.
What,
Well, like I said,
appreciate it.
I
Yeah.
brought it
It was
2
good
weeks
to
ago,
bring-
We didn't know. What was-
pre-town meeting.
Yeah, we need table.
Yeah. No.
Because if I brought it to you for the first time at this point, post ballot and town meeting, you wouldn't have had much time to really think about it.
And it would have
So-
seemed reactionary.
right,
But again, we were up against a deadline of June 1st. I didn't want to take anything off the table for your consideration. So,
So parents
Thank
need
you.
to know whether or not their vote mattered. This is one instance in which we can all see that we can breathe a little easier thanks to voters motivated and voting.
absolutely. Okay, so, for discussion, the Family School Partnership Compact.
so coming to the table now, we have Meredith Weiss, who is our EL coordinator, is an EL teacher. That means teacher for students who are learning English as the second language. and Mr. Michael Smith, who is a teacher at Turkey Hill Elementary. These two individuals were part of the district Family School Partnership Initiative team last year when we were doing the work that was facilitated by the Department of Ed. They did such outstanding work as part of that committee that when I was taking on an awful lot of extra hats this year, I asked them if they would take the lead and be the co-facilitators of the Culture and Climate Council that we created as the next phase to the work we did last year, trying to build this school-family partnership in our district.
Dr. Burton, can you tell me, ma'am, I don't mean to talk about you, but what's her name?
Meredith?
Used to.
She actually
Yeah, she
used
was
to
on
be
the school committee.
This is her seat.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
her
you
seat.
should sit in her seat.
She used to sit here.
She was right this. She was this seat.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Burnham. Good evening, school committee. Thank you for having us tonight. Dr. Burnham, you kind of stole my intro, which is welcomed. We're here tonight to present the Family School Partnership Compact, but to also explain some of its intentions and where we're at in the process. So our hopeful intentions are to align the three stakeholders, our families, our students, and our school staff, in the ways that we can best support students in their educational experience. Clarifying expectations, in my experience as a classroom teacher, I've always felt alleviates potential miscommunication. It helps everyone understand how they can best play their role in the success of the students. And again, I've always felt in my classroom, clear and high expectations always allow students to reach. This document can be used as a springboard for many conversations that could take place between family, school, student, and student family about the expectations and how to uphold the responsibilities of an LPS community member. We feel that this should be a living, fluid document that can be revised and adapted as it's being used by the district stakeholders. It's definitely not a first and final presented compact. In order for it to be implemented and utilized correctly, most effectively, we feel like it should continuously address the needs of the students and the school community, therefore should be open to review consistently. If something needs revision or addition, we feel like it should be able to take part immediately. Something that had been brought to our group was that perhaps an attached survey or QR link could be connected so that stakeholders could provide ongoing feedback to their understanding of the document, their utilization of the document, questions they may have, or ways in which it's being utilized and implemented. So.
And then based on the reflective practice that happened throughout our meetings of this creation of the document, it's not something in addition to, it's something that's already happening. This is just a place where it's stated explicitly. The communication piece is there for everyone to see. Now, some proposed next steps from this group. There's some recommendations for principals building leadership to then disseminate this information from the compact to their staff and family and students, and maybe suggested places to put this on their websites, newsletters, open house pamphlets, that sort of thing. Further conversation should continually happen at each of the buildings about the implementation, about how it's actually going to work and live at each of the campuses, including all the stakeholder groups, just as we did with the creation of the document. And then in the end, thank you for reviewing this compact. If you have any feedback for us that we can carry on, please share.
So maybe you could tell them a little bit about the ways in which you have sought some feedback on what you've developed already and what's sort of still in process.
Sure. So some of the things that we did, we had a group of 19 or so
19, I think,
staff,
is the number,
and
including ourselves.
Yeah, staff and family members from different, oh, thank you.
Just making sure you're on.
Yeah, from different campuses, grade levels, parents that had students in different places, trying to really reach out to as many different facets as we could. So we had multiple meetings where we would present some information. They would discuss feedback. We would pull that information all together and then go back out and repeat that process about 3 times until we were able to whittle down to the compact language that you see in front of us. Then beyond that, we were reaching out to students in their classrooms. We have some additional reach out that we would like to try.
Continue doing that.
And then, of course, we encourage the campuses to reach out with their students as well. I think that answered the question.
Any questions, Mrs. Schoenbrini?
So first of all, I just want to say I love 2-page presentations. It is clear, it is colorful, it is short, it's great. I think this is a really good idea. One question that I had was, especially for Meredith, what sort of things can we do that would make kids who are English as a second language students, what can we do to reach out to their families, to make them feel welcome, to make them feel part of the community, to make them feel like this is a place where you get out what you put in?
So let me jump in there for a second.
Yeah.
Meredith does an outstanding job of that already. And we actually had a solid model in place even before Meredith joined the district. But I will let her now explain what happens routinely.
So, yeah, do you have a whole nother meeting just for that? I can tell you of so many things. Briefly, some of the things that we do, 3 times a year, there are family engagement meetings with the families of ELS, and I'm even considering expanding that out to all of our multilingual families, because there are some families that their students may not have qualified to be an English language learner, but they still come from a multilingual household. That said, we meet at the beginning of the year. We have discussions on things like Power School, which for some parents is brand new, even though the information has been shared. It somehow didn't get across to them, so we give them another opportunity to see that. If there are important dates that are happening at different campuses, or just the customs, I will say, of what happens in a school system is very strange to people from other countries. It's even strange to me, who came from another state, how things are done here in Massachusetts and then in Lunenburg. So just being able to communicate with them. We met at mid-year where we discussed testing. Keeps turning off. Like the access test, the proficiency testing that happens there, preparing them for MCAS so they can see what's going on with that, and giving them opportunity to ask questions. Some of the things that happen in the meantime, I'm looking up where a good dance class is for a particular student, because the parent has mentioned that that's something that they're interested in, or if they're looking for Lunenburg swag because they want to feel a little bit more a part of the community and they didn't know where to find the link for that. We use Talking Points as an app, so they stay in communication with me in that way, where it automatically translates what they need. And I'll get a message from a parent near the end of the day, can you let my son know that he needs to come home and not stay for the tutorial program? And then I'm on the phone calling the middle school secretary to get that message across. So things like that are happening on a routine basis. Our next meeting is on June 6th, and we're scheduled to be in the library space, the public library, so then they can interact with what's happening there at the library, and then of course Kids Kingdom's behind there if they have little ones and they want to go play afterwards, or if they want to check out a book, which I'm encouraging through all the progress reports, which they get twice a year, and I'm working on those as well. So if you want any more,
That is
let me
excellent.
know.
That's great.
I think that
And
answers
I
the
have
question.
to say, we lost our second ELS teacher earlier this year, so Meredith has been
Both.
picking up
Excellent.
the
Talking about some hats, I empathize a lot.
But the good news is we've offered the job to somebody for next year, and we're just waiting on a formal acceptance on that. So we'll be back up to full strength again.
Yep, ready to
But-
onboard her as soon as possible.
Yes. Meredith has done a lot of work this year.
Thank you.
It's a lot of fun. Come check it out. Currently housed in Turkey Hill.
Mrs. Brzezowski.
Okay. I've said some of this to Matt at the Turkey Hill thing. First of all, I'm so excited that this exists. Needed to exist. I love that it clearly I love that it lays out the three parts of families, caregivers, students, and the school. Because when those three things work together, we get a much stronger, better district, the students are served better, and I like that it lays out the expectations of everyone and what to expect. I think it's graphically appealing. I like that it's short. I think it's great. I do want to say, like, between you guys and everyone else here, I'm the only one up here who doesn't have a postgraduate degree. It's not super easy to read. It's not incredibly difficult. I ran it through,
The fog.
yeah, I ran it through a few grade level engines to determine, and it's coming out at grade 13 graduate levels for some of the sentences. It's not easy to read, and I think it was written by highly educated, highly intelligent teachers who are used to the vocabulary. For instance, there are places where you use the word utilized. You can just say used. Things like that. And I understand, like Matt had talked, I said, well, why didn't you phrase it like this? And Matt had talked about, okay, every sentence starts with a verb. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fantastic. I love that. Like, if you look, every single one of these sentences starts with a strong action verb. So that makes sense. And I think that you guys put so much effort and so much thought into the wording, so it's really hard for me to say I don't like how it's written, because it's clear that a lot of thought and effort went into exactly how everything is written. But it's sometimes when things are harder to understand, it is hard for parents to quickly read it while trying to juggle kids and everything and then retain the information easily. It's not too hard. It's just, it's when we are writing things for parents and for students, I think they should be written at perhaps like an 8th grade level, or they should be written so that they're easily digestible, so that distracted people can read them and remember them. But it's hard for me to say that because I understand the amount of effort that went into this and the thought that went behind the word choice. But again, I guess my question is, who is the target audience of this? Is it for teachers in the school district and everybody who's been teaching and has master's degrees and PhDs and law degrees, or is it for parents and students who haven't graduated high school or who don't necessarily have gone to college? Who's the target audience for this?
I think the target audience is all three. I think without all three being the intended audience, our compact falls short. We'll definitely keep in mind the language choice. I think it was written with a professional style, so we understand that may need to be adapted for other viewers, other readers. We've also considered ways in which it can be translated for our our second English as a second language families. So we will definitely consider that in the.
Yeah, I saw you
Next
did
steps.
make, because I've got my old copy here. I saw you did make some changes, which
Couple,
like,
just a
and it's
couple.
edited and it's even better. And I mean, I know that you guys put a lot of thought into every single one of these starts with an action verb.
Well, and that was part of the challenge when
Yeah.
all these ideas then came together and we were trying to put ideas that were similar together because the list was much longer than this and all that word choice and thing, and we just didn't have the heart
Yeah.
to take anything out yet. But I, to your point, agree on the language simplicity is much,
Yeah.
needs to be improved. Writing in simple sentence structure and simple language helps people who have a different level of reading ability, as well as translation pieces. When the document gets translated into the other language, if it's too complex on the English level, it comes out garbled
Worse.
in the translated version. So when it goes through the different iterations at campuses, I would definitely recommend that feedback come from parents on where they feel like we need to pull that in a little
And the
bit more,
and
and
the
how it
students.
comes out as translated.
And the student
And the
side as
students.
well.
Yeah.
So is your intention to have a different version of this for every school?
The purpose of our group was to create a compact, but we have discussed with our council that it would be beneficial for each building, for each campus to evaluate this as a foundation and then adapt it as needed for their students, for their families. Excuse me, specifically around grades, and we know the difference between some of our high school campus and our primary school students, right? We understand that the necessity around grades is different, so the language in those areas might change. But for our intentions, our task was to create one for the time being.
Get us all on the same page to start
Get
with,
started.
and then
Get started.
from
This
there.
we feel this is the beginning, but we hope this is the right start. But we appreciate the
It's a
question.
really good start, and this is a significant amount of work, and there's a lot of thought put into this, and there's a lot of complex ideas distilled down, which is not easy to do.
And we also wanted to be sensitive to all of the members of the group who spoke to put
Right.
these expectations in there. We felt it would be inappropriate to withdraw one of the items in the list due to the size or the complexity of the statement. So we tried to make some adaptations to the language, but we wanted to remain sensitive of the voices that were included in the document as well. So, but we will certainly,
Take that feedback.
yeah, we appreciate that.
Okay. Mr. Leighton?
Yeah, thank you for your work on this. I think this is great. I almost took it as more of like a curriculum that you're writing it, but now we gotta now implement it. So I think, like you said, you're gonna implement it at different grade levels and in different ways and in different verbiage and different vocabulary. But I think the implementation now, it's like take this, and you're not just gonna hand out these documents and expect parents to read through the whole thing. Some parents are just not gonna read it, but I think it's that continuous education of parents, students, and working with, whether it's like an activity night where you can have a presentation on some of these highlights, and you're not gonna probably be able to cover everything on one night, but I think it's that continuous education of all these roles and responsibilities and expectations. So I like that. I think what I'm really interested in is what are the next steps? How do we implement this?
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is wonderful. And I am impressed with Mrs. Brzezowski's comment, because I'm reading everything, I get it, so, but I can see where not everybody would, but with Brian's comment, and, if you're to implement a first grader isn't gonna read through and know what to do, obviously, and that's, an obvious one, but to have at a parent level, people that wouldn't necessarily understand. And you'd think I would have thought of that, because as we do everything here, Tony has his running list of education E's that he keeps asking us.
Oh, I got a bunch for you.
Oh, gosh.
So I would have thought of that, but I agree. I think this is great as it is, and now to take it and put it into use. I think this is wonderful, because it's something that, once again, as you said before, it's something we do anyways, but to write it all down and then to remind people you need to do these things, and to have parents understand that they need to do those things, and the kids too. So I think it's a great thing to have all in one spot.
Thank you.
Who did the graphic design?
Most credit over here. We knew we wanted visually appealing. We did the good
we
search on Google and said,
Yeah.
what do other people do visually? And like, we like that look, let's see what we can do with it.
Very nice.
We ended up eliminating the non-graphic version because we felt this one was just better for any purpose, so.
Agreed.
I just want to, as Laura mentioned it, I grabbed 3 sentences and I put them through something called the Gunning Fog Index, which was a standard developed by a newspaper man. And they averaged out at 14, which is a college sophomore.
And on Fleisch Kincaid, it was grade 13.
Yeah, I mean, I did not even pick up on it, but Laura's point, I think, is definitely well taken. And I think it's something you guys, like, it's not you did it for a reason, and I get it, but I think she's right in that it probably needs to be simplified a little bit. But I loved it. I thought the visuals were great, 2 pages is great, but Laura's definitely correct.
Generally, when you're writing, like for marketing materials, or when a newspaper's writing, you want to, or an article, you want to be writing, generally, you aim for about an 8th grade level. Not because you're writing to people who read at an 8th grade level, but because their brain can better focus at that level where they don't have to focus. And I know as a parent, if I have to read something and I need to think too hard about it, I can't do it while I'm doing a million other things. So like if this came home in a backpack, I would have to put it aside until I could focus and not be holding kids or juggling things. That's just something to keep in mind as far as who is the target audience.
It's good information, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I also want to say I really like the idea of adding the QR thing so that people can give you
We've got
feedback.
someone on tap to help us do that.
I think that's an excellent idea. Not that I'm good at that kind of thing, but other people are, you know. Okay, anything else?
Did you guys know this was gonna be this much work when you signed up?
We done the first year, so yeah, we kind of
We-
knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
As far as that.
We knew what we were signing up for.
Thank you. I know this was a
And they
lot.
signed up still anyway.
I know,
You
thank you.
did it anyway.
You're welcome.
This was a lot. I
We
think it's
thank
gonna
you
make
very
the
much.
school
Thank
community
you.
much better partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
That's awesome.
just as an aside, this ties back to one of the goals.
Right. Okay. Facilities update. Mr. Heavy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Eric Heavy, Facilities Director of Grounds for the school. I have an update that you guys should have on all the projects that we're currently working on. Right now, we have about 6 of them that we're working on. Our first update is the high school field, turf field feasibility study, phase 1. We are working with Collins Engineer to evaluate the drainage problems that we have at the turf field. So we recently had them come out and they deployed a drone over the field to calculate the elevations of the walls and the landscape. And they also identified through GPS some of the drainage locations. And by marking all those, they're able to get a sense of whether or not, you know, the pitch of the pipes are generally in the right locations. So they came out and they did their study in May 29th. We're going to meet to discuss their findings when they came out. We did have a significant rainfall prior to them coming out. And I was able to capture pictures of the water problems that we had, where there was water literally draining through the lower part of the retaining wall, where the sidewalk is. You could see the water coming, just draining right out. So that indicates that there's obviously some drainage not properly put there. For whatever reason, there's a problem, and they'll figure it out what the problem is. And that whole wall is also starting to move forward. So, but we're about halfway through it, through the analysis. They'll come out, we'll sit down, talk about it, and talk about our next steps, so. Our next update is the Turkey Hill exterior door upgrades. We have secured an architect to review the exterior vestibule that we have to put in there. And we have to do an architect because it's an exterior part of the building, and that all has to be certified by an architect. So there's a reason for doing that. And then we've got 14 doors, exterior doors that we're looking to replace around the building. Then we have the Turkey Hill security upgrades, and that is, you know, for the door swipes and the cameras upgrades. So we have a consultant on that. It's NV5, and what they will be doing is mapping out all the layout of all the card swipes and all the camera locations, and we'll be coming up with the specifications to put out to bid. And they're going to be helping us get all that information together and sent out. And then we have the Turkey Hill fire alarm upgrade or modifications. And again, we have NV5 working with us to map that all out and get ready to get that out to bid, which we plan on getting this all out to bid for the summer and all the work being done over the summer.
Wow.
So it's a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff there that we have to look at. But we're making good progress on it. The next item is the primary school AC mini splits. We have secured Dakin Applied as our contractor, and we have mapped out all the equipment that we needed for putting the AC units on the second floor on the school. And they are starting to deliver some of that equipment for the summer. So that'll be coming in within the next week or two. So we'll start storing some of that equipment in the building.
Right.
So that's moving along. And we have the primary school security upgrades, which is the you know, door access controls and security keys for primary school. And again, we have NV5 secured to help us out to document that and get the specs and send that out to bid. So I'm hoping to meet with them relatively soon. I'm hoping within the next week or two to be able to sit down and get further into it. And then we had, what's completed so far is we had a school truck that we had purchased not too long ago. And that has been, that has come in and is now, part of our fleet. So it's registered, it's working, everything's good, so I'm taking it off the list.
Terrific.
The stickers are on it, it looks all nice.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's a lot to have worked on, and we appreciate the update and everything that is being done. Do we have any questions for Mr. Heavey?
And that doesn't even address all of the day-to-day fixes
Right.
and
No,
problem shooting.
Right.
getting other contractors in, and the elevator that still is problematic, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
He's very,
I
very
will say
good.
that, just an update on some of the buildings. We did some work here at the high school. We've had some complaints on, rooms getting too warm and, areas being too cold. And I was able to get a controls guy in to look at our system, and we were able to make some good progress today. So we were finding out that the system was calling for 100% heat in some of the classrooms. So, yeah, it was getting warm in there, and we were able to make some changes with the system, and I think it's gonna make a big difference, and people are gonna start noticing it. And we've identified some areas that we need to work on and improve, and as well as, upgrading some of the thermostats. So we will create that list and gradually chip away at it and get things to a normal level playing field. But it's gonna take some time to do.
Sure.
But there's a lot there to look at, because we're looking at 3 schools, so everything I do here, I have to do that with every school, and it'll take some time to do. But we'll get there. I have no doubt that things will get a lot better.
Great. Mrs. Brzezowski, you had a question?
Oh, I always do, I'm sorry. Okay, is the window film was approved?
That was just approved.
Okay,
Not
my
till-
question though, is the window film gonna go on the new vestibule, which I assume is gonna have windows? Is the new vestibule gonna have windows, or is it gonna be brick?
We haven't, the initial thought is windows,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to discuss that.
Oh,
Um,
it hasn't been designed yet, so we don't know.
Yeah, so
Okay.
once I sit with the architect, we'll have that conversation and see how it fits in the project. If we can put some type of security film on it, we'll do it.
Okay, what is the timing as far as, the vestibule and the security system? Are they happening at the same time? Cause I imagine,
It'll be timed out. There's certain things that have to be done, like we have to get the vestibule in and built before we can put in some of the cameras and door access swipes, and some of the fire alarm upgrades.
those will come after the
Those
vestibules.
we'll coordinate all
Okay.
that, so.
Do you know roughly, you don't know?
I don't have-
I can't ask when it's gonna be done.
Alls I can
but-
say is the plan is to do it over the summer, and we will do our best to make it fit within,
This summer?
yes,
Okay.
that's the plan.
You're gonna be busy.
Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
He's not actually building the vestibule.
No, I know, but this is a lot to coordinate.
It
These are
is
a
a
lot
lot.
of
It is
simultaneous
a lot.
projects. This is, yeah. So we have, NV5 is doing the engineering survey for the fire alarm and the security.
Yep.
My dumb question is Dicon, who do they who's doing the mini splits? Who do we currently use them for something else?
They are one of our vendors for the air handling units on the roofs.
Of every building or just?
The high school and primary.
Okay. Oh, so they're, okay. I just wanted to know, and they're gonna be doing the mini splits too?
Yep.
Okay. And those are actually getting delivered, like they're ordered and they're on their way?
Some of the equipment is starting to come in, so it's gonna be tight, but we're working on it.
Okay. And we had talked before about the field house security system.
Yep.
Is it possible to roll that in?
No.
Okay. Just because we've got them out here already and the,
Well, the
And-
funding was allocated as part of a.
well, yeah, but can we,
So I can't expand
Not
what's
expand
in
the
the-
funding, but can we, while we have them out here working, and we're spending a ton of money with, like, NV5's doing 2 different projects. Can we add on the field house?
That's a separate quote that we've gotten.
Okay.
So I have quotes on all of that.
Okay,
We need the funding to be able to do it.
okay,
Work in progress.
okay. I just wanted to check in on that. It's not like when I have a contractor out and I'm like, hey, while
No,
you're here, can you
yeah.
also just fix this?
Yeah, that
It doesn't work like that.
Government doesn't work that way.
Okay, no, and that's, and, wow, okay. You're gonna be busy and,
Very busy, but he's doing a great job.
yeah, and these
Yes,
are
we
great,
appreciate it.
great updates, and, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I was just wondering about the doors at Turkey Hill. You're anticipating those would be done over the summer as well?
Yes.
Awesome.
It's gonna be a tight,
Tight,
um,
yeah.
I'm anticipating that it might be a little bit into the school year, but we will work it so that, we'll be strategic on what doors we hit first. So, but yeah, it'll be tight.
Mr. Heavey, this is tremendous progress, and we are just delighted.
Yeah.
We thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Topics for the delegation. So what I wanted to do, we initially wanted our delegates to come and speak to us, because when we have that big, huge meeting with the select board, it's really their big, huge meeting, and we get 33.5 seconds per person to ask a question or something. They did the best they could, but in that particular format, it's very difficult for us to focus on what we're concerned about. So I spoke to the delegates, and we initially tried to get them at our last meeting, but they were in the middle of doing delegate stuff, that they had to do, so they couldn't do that. I know that Representative Scarsdale is doing this huge round table kind of thing, and I told her, that's not what we want. We've already done one of those. We would like, so before I attempted to get them to a date that they could come, even if it was Representative Scarsdale one day and Senator Cronin a different day or whatever, because people's schedules are what people's schedules are, and the Senate is somewhat different than the House and in their schedules, and she said it would be helpful, and I think it makes sense to me, if we gave them topics that we may be asking them about. And I would ask, obviously, if you know what your topics are, you can tell me, but if you could think about it before our next meeting and, or send them to me prior to our next meeting, then once I have a good list of what we want them to talk about, it makes more sense to schedule them.
So the one thing
Go ahead.
I know that this is my only issue. I only want to put one on the list
Okay,
for this very reason.
I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
The busing bidding process in the state of Massachusetts is bananas. It is not a business, it is not competitive, and we are spending more and more money each year simply to maintain the services that we get, and it is vastly outstripping what the rate of inflation is. And as long as we only have one option, we are essentially held hostage. So after the town hall meeting with the select board, I sent proposed legislative changes to a very esoteric part of the bus approval process that would maintain records and require proof of competitive bidding in order for your bus to be approved by the Department of Safety and Regulation, or what, I forget what it was, for the state of Massachusetts. We need some kind of relief. And a legislative fix that would target the busing companies would not require an additional expenditure by the state or by the town of Lunenburg or by the school district. This is not something that we need to have like a huge bill passed. It's just a little tweak that would give us some potential relief. We just gotta make them bid against each other again.
Right.
Right? And like, for whatever reason, market forces have not been successful at doing that, so let's nudge the market a little bit. That's my only thing.
That's your only thing. All right, I got it. Mr. Leighton?
I think it would be that state funding has a minimum that goes along with inflation, that they're supporting the towns and the cities that are not getting inflation-adjusted increases. That Lunenburg especially is having a hard time not getting enough state aid increase. And then my other one is
And you mean municipal, not just school. You mean municipal.
I think Chapter 70
Yeah.
funding. I think
Oh,
it's really,
okay.
it is really
Chapter
Chapter 70
70,
funding,
yeah.
but if they can help out the town, that would be great too.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect is the additional revenue from the millionaire's tax, that 800 million, they should be getting additional educational funds. Again, for especially the towns who are not getting the support that they need from the state.
Okay.
I know that Representative Scarsdale, a lot of the work she has been doing legislatively has been about regional
Mhm.
transportation reimbursement. Does that
Right.
affect us at all in
No.
any way? No.
It does not affect us at all.
So that
We are
seems to
her
be.
only town that
Yeah,
is not
that
in a
seems to
region.
be the
Right.
bulk of her focus is on regional transportation. That affects Lunenburg not at all. It doesn't help us in any way. So I know she had shared on Facebook, someone had shared to the Discussing Lunenburg site about Margaret Scarsdale helping out with education, and here's how she's gonna get our costs down, and it was all about regional transportation. That helps us zero. So I don't know if she doesn't know
She does.
that-
I've talked to Margaret about this.
we're regional, or if it's just Lunenburg's not, she represents other towns and we are a small minority of her electorate, but regional transportation is not gonna help us. And I just wanna make that very clear, that is the legislative, that's not helping us at all.
Right. I will say that she called me, and I've had a lot of conversation with all three legislators. Since the fall, not the fall, because that's when I was supposed to call them, and I didn't know. So probably since January, I have had a lot of conversations with the legislators. And Margaret has focused on the earmark for us. And the earmark may come through, and in this case, if the earmark, because the override passed, if the earmark does come through, that will be, she was working on the enhanced 911, that would give us $67,000. And that's what she was pushing for us.
Okay.
So just so you know, it's not that she has forgotten us, has not at all. But I speak to her fairly regularly, so I will mention that. But that will be on the list as to what she would be doing that does not involve regionals.
And because we're not harmless.
We're not held harmless, which I thought we were. I'm gonna be honest, but
I think it was 2019.
Tracy walked me through it, and no, we're not held harmless.
Maybe it's also asking about making that adjustment too on the held harmless number.
I think the held
It's
harmless
increasing
number
that
is
number.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
and I know that
For-
Senator Cronin has been working hard on that. That's not gonna help us in particular, but he's also working on the inflation rider for, Chapter 70.
And the 40S money,
The 40S
Just-
money
it's just gone.
is formulaic.
Yeah.
It's not just gone, it is just gone right now.
We'll-
It could resurface, it depends on the population of the people that live in the 40A smart growth.
And that's a reimbursement, so we.
That's a reimbursement thing, so, I can't, it's not gone, but formulaically, we do not qualify any longer.
Yeah.
But we could again, depends on who moves in. Unfortunately, that's the way that particular fund is listed. I have been talking to them, So, once again, I will reach out to Peter because I know he has ideas.
I think the other part too is letting him know that we had to pass an override to get the funding because the state, again, wasn't funding us
Yes.
to the
Well-
level we need.
That was part of it, yes.
And we're not gonna be able to do that every year.
No.
And we have really good voters in Lunenburg.
Well, yes, we could say that.
We were the only town around that passed the override, so maybe our elected officials should pay attention to voters in the town.
Agreed.
That would be nice.
Okay. All right, so I will reach out to Peter to make sure he knows to get me anything. And if you think of anything else before the next meeting, let me know. And then I'll have a list put together and then I can send it off and we can try and schedule them, whether they can come together. I know they prefer that, but one at a time, I'm okay with that too. Whatever works. And
It's gonna
is
be
what
hard to
will
get all
work,
three.
you know? Okay, so now on to new business then. We have donations.
Yes, this evening, we have a check in the amount of $24.90 from Box Tops for Education that would be deposited in the gift account for the primary school, and that money would be used to support upcoming school trips. We also have a check in the amount of $21 from Box Tops for Education that will be deposited into the gift account at the Turkey Hill Elementary School. And I would recommend acceptance of both.
I'll make a motion to accept the donations with gratitude.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, I think as a matter of public service, and because it can't be hard, how do you do that? Like, you used to cut off the box top and send it in with the kids. You don't do that anymore.
I think it's you scan a QR code.
Scan the code, yeah.
It's an app.
Yeah.
You put the app on
It's
the
an app?
phone and you say where you want that money to go, and then you just, you scan your receipt.
Okay, we need to publicize, thank you.
I'm doing it right
Thank
now.
you, Mrs. Lizick.
What's the app called? Doing
It's
it.
literally Box Tops
I'm
for
doing it.
education.
Because that is such an easy way for people to get funds into our schools. And like the dinosaur over here, we cut them out and we brought them in and some poor parent sat through and figured out the box tops. So, thank you. So we need to do a publicity thing on that, maybe in a newsletter sent home, how that works. Because it should be more than $21 and $24. If it's in an app, how easy is that? Even I could do it. So I think that's something we need to do. Okay, I digress. Moving on. Thank you for hanging around so long. The new IEP form?
Well, I'm just going to introduce you all and then move on from there. So this year, as you know, DESE is moving to a new IEP form that's going to be implemented next year for all of our students that are on IEPs. Through a grant, we were able to have 9 of our staff members, and these are 3 of them, that went to extra trainings and took the lead in learning the most in the district right now about the new IEPs and be able to roll out professional development to the staff. And they'll be answering questions too for next year when we start that process. It's been a great resource in moving this process along, and it's awesome to know that we have people in each building that now know what's going to be going on, for the most part, because some of it is still up in the air. But so we have Maura Lizick, we have Laura Shea, and we have Josh Kojal, middle school, high school tonight. And so some of them presented to the PAC-SAL this year. Some of them presented at professional development for staff. And then the last presentation of the year is to you all. And so they've got a PowerPoint that you all had.
Yes.
That you all have. And so they're going to go through that for you, just to give you a little overview. It's not anything, it's not going to be in depth, but just to give you an overview as to what that new IEP is going to look like.
Would you like another microphone?
We're good at sharing.
You're good at sharing? Okay.
I'm loud by nature, so.
Who wants to start? Okay, well,
So basically, we went to the trainings and we were trying to figure out all the new forms and what the difference was between the old IEP and the new IEP. I'm not going to go through all of it, but what's nice is that a lot of things that were kind of an add-on, like the whole autism piece of things, is more embedded. There's a lot more that's going to be more embedded in the into the IEP and more clear to hopefully clearer to parents as they get to know the form, and driven by the.
Yeah, so I think the Department of Ed's main focus in changing this up was to find a better voice through the students and families. So the documentation that we presented with some of the examples in that slideshow kind of highlight the different formats. The opening page really looks at a bunch of questions that are student driven and looking at student goals over time. And those goals and objectives that we write within that IEP will be tied to those students' aspirations after school. They want to make it as real life as possible and have the students moving towards goals and objectives that will make them successful once they're move on out of school. The forms and documents have changed. This IEP, like Morris said, includes a little bit more where some of the other stuff was separate, such as the transition planning forms and things like that. That's a big piece for us at the high school. We really work with the students. Once they turn age 14, we work with them on some sort of transition plan from school age into adulthood, whether it's independent living skills, life skills, that sort of stuff. There's a lot more verbiage in it. And so I think, and again, speaking to the presentation from Meredith and Matt earlier, I think the goal is to have language that is both student and family friendly, but really explains what's happening a little bit more in depth than we currently do. They've broken out some of the areas and really focused on social emotional learning, behavioral stuff, with some of the PLEPs that we went through in previous years. So there's a push on making sure students are in the least restrictive environment, and that they have access to any sort of accommodations or modifications that they would need through the process. I think one of again, it's a work in progress. We all have been through trainings. We've trained the whole train the trainer model. We've all presented to our various colleagues at our grade levels. But I think it's honestly not something that we're gonna have a ton of questions on until we actually use and manipulate the document and go through the meetings. We've been told from other schools that have piloted this year that it is adding a significant amount of time onto the meetings, which will be taking teacher reps and things like that out of the classroom a little bit longer than we normally do. So we'll get a feel for that and a feel for the process and try to streamline it as quickly as we can. Right or wrong, I don't know, unless it's initial by the time they get to the high school. I feel like most of those parents have been through this quite a bit. I tend to, and again, this is me. Anyone that knows me knows I'm kind of off the cuff, but we really cater to you freshman year, and our goal by the end of that high school is for you to be as independent as you can be. So learning to advocate for yourself, that sort of stuff. So the ultimate goal, if reachable, would be those students by senior year have a significant decrease in services from where they may have been in kindergarten. So with that said, my point being is that those meetings I think tend to go a little bit quicker. The transition from 8th to 9th grade is involved for all. We've done a better job in the last couple of years of getting into 8th grade meetings to try to ease that transition. And then when they come to high school with their first 9th grade meeting, we take some time and go through the hoops of what high school looks like. But as they go into that sophomore, junior, senior year, sometimes parents are like, I've been doing this for 10 years, I'm good. Let's just go through what we need to go through and I'm out. So, but the biggest change is that student piece. They want a student voice really heard through this IEP, and they want the goals and objectives catered towards life goals and applications. So,
It seems like, and the content is all very similar. The formatting is what's going to look different. And that'll be something that we'll kind of navigate when we start using it, whatever platform that we're going to use, and what that looks like on the website.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think this is good information, but if it's not, I apologize. I believe everyone knows, or you're gonna find out. I think we're making a transition from Frontline, which is our current IEP documentation platform, and tying it in with PowerSchool, which we currently use. We did have a brief training on that. It sounds really exciting. I think some of the things it's going to alleviate is those two systems talking to each other and updating some of that demographic information and things like that. It's also, I think this new IEP format is going to be much user-friendly for parents and gen ed teachers. The way it's broken down, the way modifications and accommodations are chunked out, are much, the way they present it visually is much cleaner than the current IEP, where it's like embedded in this crazy mess of information. So with that change in the documentation and the change in the platform we're using at PowerSchool, it's gonna make it a lot easier for gen ed teachers to access the information they need to make sure that they're providing the accommodations and modifications they need to in their classroom. So again, until we really manipulate the document and have a few meetings and see what's going on, I'm sure we'll have some feedback and changes, and would love to have discussion about it. We offered the same thing with the parent advisory group for the special ed, that once we get going, if they'd like to meet again, early in the fall and just kind of discuss where we think we're at and how it's going, we can do that. So I think until we actually manipulate it, we just have the general information on changes.
My role is a little bit different because I'm not a teacher. I'm the school psychologist and team chair that runs the special education meetings. So one of the things that I've been looking at in terms of the parent's voice and the student's voice is what can we give them ahead of time so we can get their voice incorporated into the document, so we have it kind of live to go into, so it'll generate some more thoughtful discussion. I know several parents have reached out and said, meeting's gonna be very long. We're aware of that, but that's what we're gonna try and put some systems into place to streamline things, but be sure that the voice is heard. I did have one meeting where a student came in, the parent requested kind of a trial run, and it went very well. It was lengthy, but I think we learned a lot in that one kind of practice. Student did very well, was very well spoken, so that was helpful for us to see. So it'll be a work in progress, but we are aware, we want to be respectful of the staff and the parents' time that they're taking, to be at these meetings and develop a well-written IEP.
Questions? Mr. Laitman?
Thank you for your work on this. You seem very knowledgeable of the topic. One concern I would have is the regular education teachers going into the new form and reading it. Do you think there's going to be a need for training at the beginning of the year for this?
We've started that process. Last PD day, we spent some time going through just kind of what we're discussing now, showing them different forms and documents, showing them the typical pages they would look at as far as current performances and accommodations and modifications. But yes, I think as we get moving through, we're going to need some training if we do transition over to PowerSchool fully, which I think we are, and them accessing it is definitely in the works for further training. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I'm looking at it with my former teacher hat on, and the first thought I have is this gonna take, once it gets going, is this gonna take you twice as long?
Initially.
I
I
wish there was
anticipate that, yes.
something we could do about that, but obviously we can't, it's a state form, but that was my first thought, is like, oh my goodness, and
There is some redundancy in some of the forms. It's broken out and there is some redundancy,
It
so
looks-
I think we'll.
it looks like some things could be filled.
Right.
Yeah, so
For the
they've
gen.
explained it to us that basically once you work within the document, it's pretty fluid. So if there's a question that like the answer is no to, like the next 6 pages go away, you don't even see them. So it's not like you're looking at like it X's out certain sections when you answer things specifically.
So that will be helpful.
Yeah, but I mean, for us, I think once we get in a groove and we had talked about running, I don't know what you wanna call it, but like basically a database with some common objectives and things for specific things that might help us streamline some of that process or, things like that. So I think the initial push will be, I like it, I'm excited about it. So I think the initial push will be a little bit crazy, but once we get through it, it will be good.
I'm looking at it, and as a classroom teacher, I think I would like it too. I think it would be more informative to me as to what I need to do in my classroom, just as a quick look, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to get into specifics, but the accommodation and modification sections, I mean, chunks it down
Yeah.
specifically to
Right.
what happens in the classroom, what would happen in like a gym or art class.
Yeah, I really like
Where
that.
some accommodations may apply specifically in a math class, but not an English class. I mean, it gets that broken down, where before it was just kind of just one section with accommodations.
And you had to figure out if it
Yeah.
applied to you or not.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then you go into the teacher's room and teachers talk like, I'm doing this for this kid, and they're like, well, I'm not, should I be doing it? So that, I mean, it makes it much clearer,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, Mrs. Brzezowski?
I got 3 things. Number 1, you guys are doing great outreach on this. Like, you have been fantastic. The whole team has been amazing at letting the special ed parents know this is coming and the training and talking us through what's gonna happen and how things are gonna change, how things are gonna stay the same. You guys are doing a really good job with the education component of that. I'm really impressed. Number 2, how long are we talking as far as the meetings taking longer? Twice as long, or like what time?
I have no idea. I think it depends on the grade level. If I were chairing at the younger level, I would think it might take a little bit longer. By the time they get to me, things have kind of narrowed down a little bit more. So we already have a lot of that work done. I don't know time-wise. I think
I think it depends on the type of meeting. Our initials at any grade level are probably the lengthiest. 3 years where people have been through it, we have a little bit more to
there's so many factors.
cover with reports. If it's it depends really what it is. I would say, I would anticipate doubling whatever the normal meeting time is, and those already fluctuate, so.
That's a lot of resources. Okay.
that is a big
Yes,
consideration
that's a
that we've
lot
been
more
talking about
resources that are
regularly.
being used in this.
Yeah, I mean, you sat in on a couple out of districts, right, that were like 3 hours?
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Okay.
Put down
And-
the
I mean,
scale,
Hopefully, once we get good at using these and front loading some of that information, it will pare down, but I think initially they could be lengthy.
Yeah, and I think as a whole state, they're looking for feedback on the process when everyone really starts rolling with it. So Juliana does a good job with that sort of piece. So, I mean, we'll provide, she loves sending forms and surveys and things like that, so we call her the QR queen. Oh, I didn't even know you were still here. Anyway, we'll provide that feedback, and again, I think the states, they had a huge team that kind of looked at this and went through it and rolled it out. But they're also looking for direct feedback from people that are using it every day. So I think within the next year, they'll get that feedback and things that need to change. I don't think their intent is not to spend 3 hours on one
Right,
meeting,
right.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Which leads me to my 3rd question, which is my perennial question, which this is a state mandate. The state handed this down. Were we given any extra money from the state for the extra resources that the school needs to use for this new, very extended form that's requiring a lot more resources from our school system?
So not resources as far as what we're going to need to run these meetings, but the 274 grant this past year did afford the money to be able to give these lovely people an additional stipend for them to be able to do the training and do that professional development. So professional
after
development
this?
wise.
Okay.
Yes.
But
So
after
Small
training,
amount
but
for the
not-
training, but not for the additional personnel hours that are gonna be needed for
Yes,
this.
that's
Okay.
that's not gonna be, and I don't think they could really quantify that in any way.
Until they see what's
until
going
they
on,
get-
yeah.
That might be
I'm
something
hopeful
we
that
can-
I'm hoping that next year, the 274 grant will again be earmarked so that we can use it for the new IEP, for whatever way we decide might be a good way to spend it. But the 274 is always a professional development grant, so I'd like it to be able to.
Is it specifically special education
Mhm.
development grant? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That might be a legislative
be-
priority,
yeah,
is
yeah.
when things come down from the state required of us, who's gonna pay for it?
Right. That is
So-
always a
It's
question
always-
when we deal with the
Pretty-
state.
Pretty much everything we do, day to day, day after day, year after year, is an unfunded mandate.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep pointing it out though,
Everything.
every change from the state that comes, it's gonna be, was there money associated with the newly, or maybe make some changes that cost us less money, please.
Well, and I recently had a conversation with a parent who asked kind of the same question about the time for meetings because they wanted to be sensitive to their employer. And I said, we can work as quickly and efficiently as we can in your allotted time. And they said, well, would you, we may have to have one meeting and reconvene another meeting. So I think we're just going to have a number of situations that in the moment, we make the best decision that we have, with our staffing and respectful of parents, because it is a considerable amount of time for, working parents to be out of work or whatever their circumstances.
And when is this rolling out?
This fall.
This fall.
Okay, it is, it didn't get delayed, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. This is, the training that you guys are putting into this and the outreach is fantastic.
Thank you.
Mr. Schoenbrini,
I have a very basic question. What is the source you use for determining children's diagnosis? Do you use like the DSM? Do you use something else?
It depends on disability category.
Okay.
Medically based, we have our outside documentation from medical providers. If it's a specific learning disability, if I'm running meetings, I go through the state checklist to identify what type of model we're using, discrepancy, or, for a specific learning disability. So it depends on disability category.
And so, these are really basic questions for you. Like physical disability, what would the other categories be?
So there's health, there's intellectual, there's a deaf, hard of hearing, there's specific learning disability, social emotional impairment, autism spectrum disorder. So,
I'm sorry, I asked the question inartfully. Not what is the diagnosis, but like you have like a bucket for physical disabilities, a bucket for emotional disabilities.
Yep.
And then a bucket for like, what are the big categories?
those are the ones I just listed.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
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 All right.
there's lots of buckets.
Yeah, there's many, and then within those, there's different criteria that we meet.
Okay.
And the overall process is a referral would be made, they would have both psychological and achievement testing done through the school. And within that meeting, we would determine eligibility or not eligibility based on those findings. Some families do come with documentation of disabilities from either primary care or outside neuropsych evals.
Does that help?
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's expensive though.
But the process from the IEP that we use now compared to this new form, that process itself wouldn't change. That's still the same, needing the
determination.
documentation, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
I'll just offer this. Having experienced being a special ed director, my hat's off to our special ed director, as well as to all of our special educators. And this evening, sitting before you, are three of the most outstanding special educators we have in the district, but they're really outstanding, I think, in any district. And they stepped up to take lead on this, and they've invested a lot of their time. Yes, there was a stipend, but there's still a lot of time. And they are going to become the go-to people in their building. So my gratitude to all of you for stepping up to take the lead on this, because this is a big shift for a lot of people.
Thank you.
So thank you
Thank
very,
you,
very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for waiting so long.
Thank you.
Even though all that exciting stuff is going on outside. Next, we have the 2024-25 school committee meeting calendar.
Yep, and it's just a draft. You can take a look. the dates are, fairly standard, the first and third Wednesday of the month. And I've indicated dates that are off-cycle, but if you think that off-cycle dates should be relocated somewhere else, we can certainly, you can provide that information to me and I can revise a different draft for you. No need to approve this evening. It's not like it's an urgent rush.
Yeah, we generally do one at the end of August sometime.
We do, but this
But
this
that's
year's a little
usually
bit
just
different
put together. Well, yeah,
because-
this, everything is
Because there's
different
no
this
turnover
year.
in this,
In this committee.
for,
Oh, did
for
you
this
win?
year.
I did, I guess.
Excellent.
I didn't even.
Yes.
I wasn't 100% sure. Like somebody sent me something that I did, but I never
You
confirmed it
got
was
more
set up.
votes than even people voted, I think. That
That
was like, yeah.
My
Some
friend
crazy
from-
numbers.
my friend from Chicago, okay?
Yeah, it was
John, you have
interesting.
to go get sworn in again, I think.
Okay.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Maybe you can't even be
You
there.
better check.
Ooh.
I gotta go.
Have to do the NASC training again?
Oh man, that was terrible.
Well,
No,
congratulations.
no, you don't
Oh,
have
we
to
don't
do
have to
the
do it.
training, just once on the
Oh, thank
training.
God.
But I do think you need to be sworn in.
Okay.
We might
Yeah, me
wanna,
too.
we
Yeah.
might wanna think about a different type of workshop meeting.
I think that was the plan,
Yep.
is that,
So I
but
can,
that won't be me, so.
I can survey everyone for their
So
availability late
excited.
in August.
Yeah.
And we can, come up with some ideas around a topic for our workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we put on here also the building maintenance plan, so we can, I very much wanna,
So we can put on a building maintenance plan, but as you can see, Mr. Heavy, has an awful
Has
lot on
his
his
hands
plate right now.
I know, that's
And
why.
he's still delving into and coming to understand all of the different
Yep.
facilities
I
and
meant
the
like a
needs.
very long-term.
Plus, we're already starting to look at the capital plan. Literally,
Well, yeah,
we've
we have
already
to.
started looking at the next iteration of a capital plan. But it is on his list that he wants to do a facility plan.
Okay.
It's on the radar, it just is not something
He's
that's a
busy
quick
this summer.
turnaround. I'd like for it to be something that's a thoughtful document and that's thorough. So, it is on the radar.
Okay.
And we will get to it as soon as we can, but I wouldn't even expect to see that in the fall.
Okay. The capital plan allocated money for the Turkey Hill study. Who is in charge of overseeing the Turkey Hill study?
Mr. Heavy.
Oh my God. Okay.
And the film as well.
Can we clone Mr. Heavy?
I wish I could.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, we're still short-staffed. We have open custodial positions. So
Are we full up
he's
for
also
maintenance?
helping with the buildings, cleaning the buildings.
Are we
So-
full up for maintenance staff right now?
No.
Okay, so we're not full on maintenance either.
Right now, we have 2 out of 4 positions.
Okay.
So he really does have his hands full. It's not that we don't want to be able to provide you a facility plan. We would love to be able to provide you a facility plan. But at the moment, he really does have an awful lot on his plate.
Oh, no, I meant like, yeah, for
Yeah.
the next year's calendar, I would like it on the calendar between,
Well, I think
Sometime
if you
between
could
fall and
afford me the opportunity to figure out when it's reasonable to expect it, and I think I'm gonna need a few more months. But honestly, it is on our radar, our list of things to do.
and yeah,
And,
knowing when the Turkey Hill plan is might also affect that, because
Correct.
that would help us
Yeah, it's gonna give us a lot of information.
a lot. Okay.
Okay. So, moving on then, we have public comment.
I have a lot of questions, but
Do you think-
No
You have one
comment.
left?
Okay.
You have one left?
I would like to make a public comment. Congratulations, Anthony.
I just
Being
said
elected.
that. I just
Did you
figured
just
it was-
check?
I did just check. I should have checked. Well, I got a really authoritative text from somebody, and I just assumed it was right. But this is the first time I checked.
Just the official ones, official numbers.
Congratulations, and welcome back.
Thanks.
Yes, welcome back.
If I could, I would like to offer up a public comment as well.
You may.
This afternoon, I was invited to help out. You may recall that last year, Krista Palmer, who's one of our first grade teachers, her class did an SEL project,
Yeah.
and it was the Hanks for Hank.
Oh my gosh.
And they had their lemonade stand, and they raised money, and they bought all the little stuffed Hanks. And now they got so many that we now have the Hank Awards at the Turkey Hill and the primary. Well, she inspired, I think, her entire first grade cohort, the entire first grade engaged in the project today. They became aware that there are students whose families rely heavily on our food pantry. And they don't always get to have birthday celebrations because money is tight. So today, they packed 90 celebration boxes, and they are either graduation celebration boxes or birthday celebration boxes. And I volunteered some of my folks up at TCP that I know have SUVs. We're gonna go down and get the boxes from the primary tomorrow and bring them up to the food pantry. They will be available to families through the food pantry.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I have, I can coordinate here.
They did a good job using Sign Up Genius. I bought 5, it was like sign up to buy 5 birthday banners.
The
sign up to buy
parents
5.
donated all of the materials,
That's
so if
that's
I'm
wonderful.
lucky enough to be able to coordinate this
Mrs.
here.
Hare does something like that every year. She does something like amazing,
Um,
community inspired, and the kids just, they learn.
I'm sharing with the folks at home on Zoom some video footage of all the different things that were donated. I'll drop these videos into your folder. Lots and lots. Birthday candles and banners for happy birthday or congratulations. The children made handmade cards, either birthday cards or congratulation cards,
Those are amazing.
and those went into the box as well.
Oh, that's
It was extraordinary, extraordinary. It was an amazing thing. So shout out to all of our first grade teachers, all of our parents who donated for this excellent adventure today. It was awesome.
This was all of the
and
first grade?
All the first grade.
All the first grade did this?
And to all the kids who helped, it was like an assembly line. They packed the boxes just went down the corridor until they got into the library.
They were all sweaty and like sitting up there, so if anybody doubts the need for mini splits, we can send them a picture from today. Because all these kids are out there just like sweating on the
Thank
second
you to the
floor
first
packing
graders and
boxes.
thank you to the first grade teachers.
It was amazing.
Thank you to Mrs. Palma for,
Thank you to her for inviting me to come help pack the boxes today, because I think that that's the best time I've had in a really long time.
Is her last name?
Palma.
Palma.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was a Massachusetts accent thing. I'm trying to find her.
And just one more aside, I had dropped into the folder an updated superintendent evaluation folder, and in that folder, there's a timeline and a how-to, but if you need any help with any of that, certainly email, call, we can walk through it either on the phone, online, or in person.
So that meeting is set for, that's the 12th.
June
correct?
12th.
So I need your completed evaluations by the 5th.
Okay.
Some of you are very efficient, and I already have them. But,
Oh, And by the 5th, we're hoping to have some preliminary iReady data to share with everybody. But early reports from Mrs. Scott are that it's looking pretty good in a couple of grades in particular. So,
wonderful.
yep, we're looking forward to that.
Well, those were all wonderful public comments. Thank you so much. Committee reports, anyone?
Oh, I have them. The Paxel met
But what we talked about was the new IEP form and how there will be a presentation on that, and we went over
And there was.
the bylaws. The Turkey Hill, so that, was there anything else? I don't actually.
Sherry Cordella is gonna be the new Paxton.
Yes, and there's a new chair. And if you have a child on a 504 or an IEP, you should come to the Paxel meeting because it's very easy. They're on Zoom and they last for less than an hour every time because they're very good about that, and it is fantastic. They're so easy to go to. And it just is full of very useful information. So we went over the IEP and the bylaws. The Turkey Hill Elementary School Advisory Committee met on May 5th, and we went over the Family School Compact, which will be presented at the May 22nd School Committee meeting, which was today. Things are getting busy at Turkey Hill. The field trips, busing for field trips is getting very, very expensive. So that's making field trips difficult because of the busing costs. So the 5th grade is going to the Woo-Sox, or maybe they already went, they may have already gone, but 5th grade is going to the Woo-Sox. 4th grade is not, they are doing 2 in-house experience field trips. They already had 1. They are field trips at the school. So the first one was Animal Adventures, came and brought a bunch of animals for the kids to touch. My kid got to touch an alligator, which was apparently very exciting, and there was a hedgehog. And this was entirely free to the kids, thanks to the PTO. And there was a little bit of money left over from last year's refund from that field trip when they were in 3rd grade. They're also doing an Earth Dome, which is a giant inflatable planetarium that is coming. That is, I'm not sure what date that's gonna come, but it sounds really neat. Yeah, and I really wanna go, but apparently I can't. But it's the Earth Dome, and that's going to be, these are good experiences because they're gonna be more individualized and the kids can go in smaller groups. 3rd grade also was doing Animal Adventures, also free, thanks to the PTO. June 5th is Field Day with rain day to June 6th, and they are sending out Sign Up Genius, and they're gonna need volunteers for Field Day. June 12th is the last day of school, and it's a half day for all students, which I know we already said, but I'm gonna keep saying because my daughter's first year of school, I forgot. So I'm just gonna keep reminding people. So Turkey Hill also sent out an optional parent input survey for placement, and they're encouraging people to fill it out. It's a survey, it was sent out, I believe, a week or 2 ago, and I think the due date is actually in 2 days. And you can fill it out. You cannot request a specific teacher, and the survey is gonna be shared with classroom teachers, so the classroom teachers can see and use that to inform classroom placement. And it was Teacher Appreciation Week 2 weeks ago, and we appreciate our teachers very much. That's it.
Okay, anybody else?
PTO had a meeting. The meeting was about the event that's out front. For anybody that didn't go, the event was a collaboration with the Lions Club.
Lions Club, the food pantry, and the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, so it was Mandy Gilman's mom, and then they got everybody to do all kinds of things, because that's what they're good at.
That's a powerful force.
Yeah, it was very well attended. It was
I
a
could tell.
bucolic evening in a small town. It was wonderful. Somebody brought a Japanese domestic market R32, which was delightful for me to see because I'd never seen one. And somebody also brought a Shelby Cobra, so that was awesome. And that was why I got here maybe 30 seconds late.
You did just fine.
You didn't like our Fox-body Mustang with dead mice in the backseat? Just that not gonna mention.
We could smell the
Do you have anything?
grilling.
Oh,
Yes,
so
we
good.
can Santi
Oh,
Grill
grill,
Grilling,
yeah.
absolutely. I have something from Master Planning. Master Planning has the next public meeting on May 30th. I have to send you the flyer to send out. It will be May 30th at 6 o'clock at Smokestackers once again, and they will be open for their menu for those that enjoy their evening cup of tea. And what they're trying to do at this point is, this will be the launch of the next survey. They're trying to take what they have already and pulse it down so we can see exactly what we're talking about. I think it's important if people are able to go. However, May 30th is also our senior awards night, so I will not be attending because I have to be there. But if you are available on May 30th, it is well worth the attending and get an idea as to where our community is thinking they need to go. So that's what's up there. So now we're up to topics for future discussion. So we are gonna put the delegation topic list on again, so we can deal with that. What else did we need to revisit?
ARPA funds? Do you have to
We
put that in the agenda?
wanna discuss about the ARPA funds, because our thought was they should be returned, but we may have a request. So, we'll have to talk about that. Anything else? No? All right, that sounds good. So, next on the agenda is executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session at 8:48 PM and adjourn following.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.